Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, 9 lines from the top. The Gemara now quotes the Sefer of the Mishnah. V'kol hayotzin lahatzil choizin l'mekoymon. All those who go out to save, they can come back to their place. Ask the Gemara, va'afilu tuva. It's mashma then, they can go back to the place, even if it's beyond 2,000 amos. But ask the Gemara, amris reisha alpayim amma v'suloi. But the reisha says only 2,000 amos. So long as he's not going to be with another part that's going to be overlapping with his tchum, another tchum with his tchum, then he can't go beyond 2,000 amos. So therefore, wherever he ends up being to be matzil, the most he will have is 2,000 amos. Yet over here in the Mishnah it states in the Sefer, kol hayotzin lahatzil choizrin l'mekoymon. This is mashma even more. Answers Gemara Amar Yehuda Marav shechoizrin b'klei zayin l'mekoymon. We're talking about, no, not that he can go beyond 2,000 amos. No, that he cannot do. But what we're talking about is that he's able to then choizrin l'mekoymon, he can take with him the klei zayin, the weapons that he took, that he's allowed to do. Ask the Gemara, my kusha, why was it a question to begin with? Dilma lahatzil shiny. Maybe when it comes to be matzil, then we say you can go beyond 2,000 amos. The Reisha was not talking about being matzil. The Reisha is talking about, let's say there's somebody who is a midwife or somebody who's giving edus for the Kiddush HaChodesh. So then we say you have 2,000 amos. If you went to then be made on the new moon, so we'll allow you 2,000 amos from that place. But when it comes to be matzil a nefesh, then we give even more than that. Ella ikashia hakasha. Rather, what the question was as follows. This nan, it says in the Mishnah, Barishoyna lo hayuzozin misham kol hayom kuloi. Initially, they would not allow you to go anywhere after you went and let's say were made on the Chodesh. Hiskin Rabbi Gamliel lahazokin. Sheyesh lohen alpayim amal lekol ruach. He made a takana that no, you're not stranded. If you went to be made on the Chodesh, on the new moon, we're not going to say that you're stuck over there afterwards. No. We will say you have 2,000 amos in every direction. V'lo elu bilvad amru. Not only these that are being made on the Chodesh, ela afilu chachma habo li'eled. Even a midwife who's going to then come back, let's say she went to then help somebody give birth. V'habo lahatzil minagayis, and somebody's coming to save from an army, an enemy army. So here we see already the hatzalah is also limited to 2,000 amos. Uminanar, and somebody who's coming back from the nahar. In other words, trying to save somebody who was drowning. Uminamapoilis, or save somebody who was then had stones that fell upon them. A rumble of stones. Umidalek, or we're saving them from a fire. All these cases are hatzalah, and still it says 2,000 amos. Hare henka anshair. Vesh lohen alpayim amal lekol ruach v'suloi. So this is where it was difficult. How can you tell me that you can go back and be chayzin l'mekoymon, which is mashim beyond 2,000 amos? Here we have the Mishnah that states that in all these cases which are including hatzalah, then you can only have 2,000 amos. Answers the Gemara, Amar Yehuda Marav, shechoizim b'klei zayin l'mekoymon. Again, the Gemara is coming to answer. It doesn't mean going beyond 2,000 amos. It means you can go to your place with your weaponry. That's permissible. Kedetani, like it says in the following brayso. What they would used to do is they would then go back to their town, and then they would put their weapons in the very first room before entering the city. One time when the enemies were coming to pursue them, they went to then take their weapons, and the enemy was then pursuing them. When they were trying to get their weapons from this room, it was a narrow room, and they were pushing each other. and they end up killing each other more than the enemy killed them. At that time, then they permitted one to then, even though he's finished with whatever he was doing, the milchama, the battle that he was in. So technically, he should just leave his weapons afterwards there. No, he can bring them back. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Omar Lakasha. He comes and explains differently. He says, not difficulty. Why is it not difficulty? Because Kan Nitzchu Yisrael as Umois Ha'olam. Here, the Gemara over there in Rosh Hashanah, that's talking about where you only have 2,000 Amos. That's talking about where the Yisrael are being menatzeach over the Umas Ha'olam. Then, since they are successful in their military battle, in waging their war, they're successful and overcame their enemy, then there's no need to then go beyond 2,000 amos. Then we say you're limited to 2,000 amos. But Khan, that which we're talking about over here in Eruvin, that you can go even beyond 2,000 amos. Shenitzchu umois ha'olam es atzmon. That's when the umois ha'olam are coming to then be victorious over the Yisrael, in which case they're in a state of danger. That's when we allow them to go beyond 2,000 amos. Says the Gemara weiter, Omer Rav Yehuda Rav, Nochrim shetzoru ala Yorois Yisrael, when Goyim come to make a siege upon Klal Yisrael, Ein yotzin aleim b'kli zainin, we don't go out against them with weaponry, ve'ein mechalin ales haShabbos, and we don't mechal the Shabbos. Tanya nami hochi. The Gemara now brings a brayso that will qualify and explain why this is so, because our first initial reaction was, why are you not going to go out with Kli Zainin? Hooray, this is Pikuach Nefesh. Certainly we should be doiche. Says the brayso to explain, because Nachrim Shetzoru, when we have Nachrim that come to then make a siege on Yisrael, Bameh Devarim Amurim, what are we speaking about over here in this case? That we say that you cannot mechalel Shabbos and you can't take out Kli Zainin? Kishebo al iske mamoin, when they're coming to then take money, there's no issue of nefashos, therefore you can't go ahead and mechal the Shabbos. Aval bo al iske nefashos, but if they were come to then harm lives, yoitzin aleim bekli zainu mechalin ales haShabbos, then you could go out, of course, with weaponry. You can even mechal the Shabbos because it's going to be doiches haShabbos, pikuach nefesh. And what about a city that is next to the border? In other words, it is the city that will then buffet. It'll be between the Gentile city and the rest of the Jewish settlements. So if you have this city called the Svar, what's the din with that? There, even if the Nachrim are coming not on Nefoshos, they're coming even on Mammon. Ela al iske teven v'kash. Yoitzin alem b'klei zayin u'machalin as haShabbos. There, then it's considered to be dangerous, even though they are temporarily, at least currently, going to then try to then get money. They're not looking for nefashos, but nonetheless, since it's going to then make the rest of the Jewish settlements open for attack, it's dangerous, and therefore it's considered to be an issue of pukach nefesh, and it's doiches Shabbos, mechalas Shabbos. Rav Yosef bar Yomi Amar Rav Nachman, uBavel ki ir smucho lasfar damya. Bavel is like a city that's like this city that is going to then be the separation between the Gentiles and where the Jewish settlement is. And says the Gemara, v'targuma neherda, that which it says Bavel is a city that is samach l'svar, is referring to the city specifically in Bavel of Neherda. And since again, that's a city that is going to be separating the boundary of the Jewish settlement, the boundary of the Nochrim, of the Umos, then it's considered to be dangerous, and therefore you can go ahead and mechalas haShabbos. Dorash Rav Destoy Demin Biri. The Gemara brings down a drasha Rav Destoy made. My Dirsi, what's meant from the following pasuk. Vayagidu leDavid, they told David Lemor, Ine Plishtim Nilchamim B'Ki'ila. The Plishtim are coming to battle in the area called Ki'ila. Vehei Mashoisin as Agronois, and they are pillaging the Gronois, the granary. Tano. The Gemara brings a brayso Keilah ir smucha l'sfar ha'isa. This area of Keilah is considered to be one of the svar. Again, something that is the border between the Jewish and the non-Jewish settlements. Even though they're only coming for Tevin and Kash, monetary areas, still, they went out and they battled with them. Dirshu, how do I know? Talking about for Tevin and Kash, because it states that they pillaged the granary, so they're only interested really in the mammon. It states, Vayishal David ba'Hashem leimor. David asked Hashem, Ha'elech v'kisi Plishtim ha'eleh, should I go out and smite the Plishtim in battle? Vayomer Hashem el David, Lech v'kisa v'Plishtim, go out, v'oshat es Keilah, and save the city of Keilah. Ma'ikimi boile, asked the Gemara, what was David HaMelech asking? If it's a halacha question, then he shouldn't go to the Urim V'Tumim for that. Right? They should go to the Chachamim. Whether it's permissible or not to go out to battle. There already was the Sanhedrin to ask. Elo, why was he asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Imut matzlach or mutzlach iloi mutzlach. Whether he'll be successful or not in his battle when he goes out. And that he was asking the Urim V'Tumim. The economy, it says, and he says that he's being told, go out and you'll then smite the Plishtim. In other words, he was coming to then say that you will be successful. And therefore, Shmamina, we can derive that he was asking this question to the Urim V'Tumim, not whether it was permissible or not. The Gemara now brings the next Mishnah, Misha Yoshav Baderech, a person, he is then sitting on the way, V'omad v'ro harei zehu samuch le'ir. And then he realizes that he is close to the ear. We're talking about a situation when he initially was resting on his travels, and he was outside the tchum of the ear. And it says over here, he sat down, he stood, and then he saw that it was already samuch le'ir. Meaning, at the time of the onset of Shabbos, he did not know that he was indeed outside of the borders. He just took a rest, and only afterwards he became aware that he's samuch le'ir. Since at the time that the onset of Shabbos happened, he did not know that he was only samuch le'ir, outside of the city boundaries. Therefore, he was not intending to be kind of the shvisa. So it says over here, Lo Yikanes, the Rabbi Meir. According to Rabbi Meir, that's it. He doesn't have the ability to then get 2,000 to get part of that city. And therefore he wasn't kind of Shvisa. He only has Dalet Amos. Rabbi Yehuda Mer Yikanes. Rabbi Yehuda says he does enter, even though he didn't have intention at the time of the Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda, Maisa Hayevin Nichnas Rabbi Tarfon B'lo Miskavin. And Rabbi Yehuda wants to support himself with Rabbi Tarfon, the Rebbe, and says that Rabbi Tarfon was once walking, and he entered a city, even though he himself was Samuch, but he did not intend at the time of the entrance of Shabbos that he should be part of the Shvisa. And therefore it says, nonetheless, he entered, even though it was Lo Miskavin. So we'll bring now a brayso that will then expand on the kavanah over here of this maisa. Says the Gemara, Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Maisa Rabbi Tarfon shaya b'halech b'derech. There's a maisa that took place when Rabbi Yehuda was traveling. V'chash chaloi v'lon chutz la'ir. It became dark. Talking about now Shabbos entered, and he then slept outside of the city. L'shacharis matzu roi bakar. The next morning, he encountered those shepherds, those who were watching the bakar. Omruloi, they said to him, Rebbe, harei ha'ir lefanecha, the ear is before you. Hikanes, enter it. Nichnas v'yoshev beis hamedrash v'dorish kolayim kuloi. Rabbi Tarfon entered, Taka, and he gave drashas the entire Shabbos. Omruloi, they said to him, Mishom Raya, there's a proof over there that you're saying Rabbi Tarfon was not miskavin and still he was able to enter. What kind of proof is that? Shema beliba haisa oy bebeis hamedrash buvla betoich truma haya. Maybe he did have intention Or, he says, that the Beis Medrash was overlapping with where he was. In which case we're saying that is not considered to be something that's outside his tchum. And therefore, that's why he entered the city. But it's not a proof that a person does not have kavana on the outside of Shabbos, that he's able to then be koine shvisa.